Okay, Assalamu alaikum students. Good evening. Um, I'm going to record this lecture and then send it to you and then also send you the lecture notes so you can go through it anytime you want to, because I don't want you to just stay without any lectures, and I don't want to just come to Bauchi just for you MSc student, just one course. Whereas after resumption, I'm supposed to come back for undergraduate students. So I hope you understand and enjoy this lecture. Even though I have given you, Ibrahim, I think I have given you some notes earlier, but no problem. I told you I was actually trying to see how I can modify the whole course, because I taught it for 2 years, but I'm not too comfortable with what I'm teaching. So Alhamdulillah, I'm able to get to update the notes, and inshallah now you like it more better, inshallah. So let's start with definition of zoonosis and their significance in public health. You know what zoonosis are? They are infections that usually are transmitted between humans and their animals, and also it could be between the animals and the humans. So the source of the infection could be a man or could be the animal. So in summary, zoonosis are diseases that can be transferred between animals and humans, and they are of great significance in public health due to their potential for causing illnesses, their role in emerging infectious diseases, and the need for a coordinated interdisciplinary approach to prevent and control them is very, very important. Understanding and managing zoonotic diseases are essential for protecting both humans and animal populations. Now, you've already known what zoonosis are, so let's go to the significance. Even though if it is the transmission, we can say how is it transmitted? It can be through direct contact with the infected animal or human, or it could be through exchange of body fluids. It could be through vectors like ticks, like mosquitoes, like some other flies, other types of flies. So the diseases are actually transmitted in different ways. So what is the significance of zoonotic diseases in public health? The human health impact. Zoonotic diseases cause a wide range of illnesses in humans, ranging from mild ones to severe to even fatal ones. Examples include some things like rabies, Ebola, Zika, and many other types of diseases, just to mention a few, right? Because if I ask you to mention, you can mention a lot of them. You have this like leishmaniasis, trypanosomiasis, filariasis. They are all zoonotic diseases. Secondly, you have emerging infectious diseases. Many emerging infectious diseases in humans have their origin in animals. This includes diseases like the HIV/AIDS, the SARS, that's the severe acute respiratory syndrome, the COVID-19. You can mention even the Lassa fever. You understand? They are all diseases that are emerging. Emerging in the sense that you don't know it is not known before, it will just occur. So that's why it's called an emerging infectious disease. It will just occur, and when it occurs, you just have to contain it. If not, it can lead to a lot of losses, whether economic losses, whether uh, life losses, you understand. Some people might die, just like what happened during COVID 19 when it just suddenly appeared and the world has to contain it. So that is what it meant by um, emerging infectious diseases. Then interconnectedness of humans, animals, and the environment. Zoonotic diseases highlight the interconnectedness of humans and the animals and the environmental health. So because of how we are interconnected, changes in the ecosystem, wildlife habitat, human animal interactions can influence the emergence and spread of zoonotic pathogens. I think this point is clear. Food safety. Some zoonotic diseases are transmitted through contaminated food products. Making food safety is a significant concern. This includes pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, that can be present in products derived from animals. Not to mention things like, what do you call it? Um, Anthrax. See, also that one can also be gotten from food from animals. Then another significance is One Health approach. Addressing zoonosis often requires a One Health approach, which recognizes the interdependence of human, animal, and environmental health. Public health officials, veterinarians, ecologists, and other experts collaborate to prevent and control zoonotic diseases effectively, because if one is doing his job and the other one is not actually doing it, you cannot be able to say, you cannot be able to contain the disease. Just like when there's an outbreak, all researchers from all aspects have to come together before they can be able to identify which one is actually causing the disease, especially if it is an emerging disease. So another significance is the economic importance. Zoonotic diseases outbreak can have significant economic consequences affecting industries related to agriculture, tourism, and trade. The cost of managing outbreaks, healthcare, and loss of productivity can be very substantial. I'm sure probably you have never seen, you've never witnessed any outbreak. Even myself, I've never witnessed any outbreak apart from the COVID-19 that we witnessed in early 2020. So if you can remember how the cost of that lockdown, then the cost of like isolation, maintaining those people, creating the isolation center, and then testing people, treatment, all these things, the cost of them is very, 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 very costly. Then another impact, which is number 7, the number is missing, is antimicrobial resistance. Because of that, especially if it is an emerging disease, you'll see a lot of antibiotics will be tested. People will use this one, drop it, pick another one, drop it, you understand? So that can cause an overuse of antibiotics in both human and animal medicine, which can contribute to the development of antibiotic resistant bacteria in animals. These resistant bacteria can then be transmitted to humans through zoonotic infections. and that can complicate issues because when you have resistance, then you are also dealing with another problem. Now let's look at the overview of transmission routes of zoonotic parasite to humans. Zoonotic parasite, we said, are organisms that infect both man and his animals, leading to a range of diseases. This parasite can be transmitted from animal to humans through various routes. And these are some of the routes. Number one, you have direct contact. This direct contact could be physical contact. Zoonotic parasite can be transmitted through direct physical contact with infected animals. They include petting, handling, or caring for infected animals. And this can include things like scabies, like ringworms, those that you can actually some allergic reactions, animal bites. But secondly, you have animal bites because it's also a direct contact. They can bite and then you scratch. Parasite like Toxoplasma gondii and certain species of Leishmania can be transmitted through bites, scratches from infected animals such as cats and dogs. The second transmission route is by ingestion of contaminated food or water. Foodborne transmission, that is, the zoonotic parasite can contaminate food product, especially those of animal origin, let's say like meat, like milk, like eggs, you understand? All can be contaminated, and then even prepared food can also be contaminated, maybe through the process by which it is produced. Some are undercooked, some are cooked properly, but maybe kept open and then got contaminated by air or some other insects. So all this can lead to foodborne transmission. Example include Toxoplasma, tinea, like when you undercook beef, you can actually get tapeworm, then Trichinella. They are all types of infections that you can get from meat. And then you have waterborne transmission. They are also as a result, water too, because you take it, ingestion, you ingest. So waterborne transmission, water sources contaminated with parasite from animal feces can lead to infections in humans. For instance, you can have this like amoebiasis, giardiasis, and you can also have things like even as difficult as some very some serious diseases like dracunculiasis, right? You can also get it through contaminated water. Vector, now the third route is by vector transmission. Arthropod vectors, some can transmit to humans through bites, such as mosquitoes, fleas, black flies, tsetse flies. All these things all these insects they can bite, and when they bite, they can now transmit the parasite. Then number 4 is inhalation of infectious particle. That is, those particles must be airborne, right? Because you inhale. So airborne transmission, certain zoonotic parasite can become airborne when contaminated feces, urine, or respiratory secretions dry and turn into dust. People can inhale these infectious particles, leading to respiratory infections. So things like histoplasmosis, cryptococcosis are example of airborne zoonotic infections. Then you have contaminated environment, soil and fecal contamination. Parasite eggs or cysts can persist in the environment, especially in the soil or areas contaminated with animal feces. Human can become infected by coming in contact with contaminated soil or surfaces. Toxocara, Toxocara canis, that's a parasite that is commonly found in uh, this animal, cat, right? And hookworms are example of parasite with this kind of transmission route. And then you have some parasites that are blood-borne transmission. So these are parasites that can actually persist in the organs, let's say transfusion or organ transplantation. In rare cases, zoonotic parasite can be transmitted through blood transfusion. Because if somebody, like if you go for this blood transfusion, usually you see the screening they are actually more concerned about is HIV, hepatitis. But they don't care whether the blood is full of malaria parasite. So you see, when that kind of blood is transfused to an individual, those parasites may persist in the individual. Screening, attesting, and even organ transplant. If the organ is infected, then if it is transplanted into another person, it can carry, the disease can manifest in the person. Then needle stick injuries. Healthcare workers or individuals who handle infected animals may be at risk of blood-borne transmission if they experience needle stick injuries in other accidents that expose and sorry or other accident that expose them to contaminated blood. Like for instance, somebody that is taking blood of HIV patient has to be very careful so that the needle does not touch him. But you know, when you are dealing with HIV patient, you are more concerned because especially if you know their status. But sometimes you get some diseases that are, well, I cannot say they are more severe than HIV, but you get things like hepatitis too. You get things like uh, you get infected with things like what do you call it? Um, you can easily get um, diseases like hepatitis. You can also get things like other parasitic diseases also can be transferred to an individual that is handling the needle. So that's why it's very important for those needles to be handled carefully. And then lastly, congenital transmission. So zoonotic parasites like Toxoplasma gondii can be transmitted from an infected mother to her fetus during pregnancy, leading to congenital infections in the newborns. And aside from that, things like even malaria can be transferred to an unborn child through the placenta. Sometimes even this disease, what do they call it? Syphilis can be transmitted to a newborn child through the mother, that is congenital infections. So let's look at the historic perspective and major outbreak of parasitic zoonosis. Parasitic zoonosis have been a significant concern throughout the human history. They have affected population around the world, often with a severe consequence. Here's a brief historical perspective on parasitic zoonosis and some major outbreaks. Number one, you have ancient Egypt and schistosomiasis. One of the earliest documented parasitic infection is schistosomiasis, and you imagine it still persists in this our country, despite that it was one of the earliest discovered parasitic disease caused by blood flukes of the genus Schistosoma. Evidence of this disease dates back to ancient Egypt, as shown in the mummies that display characteristic signs of the infection. So the presence of this parasite in the Nile River made it a hot spot for schistosomiasis transmission. The Middle Ages and the plague of Justinian. Although it's not primarily a zoonotic parasite, the plague of Justinian that occurred 541 to 542 AD was a devastating pandemic caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. Fleas that infested rats were the vectors. Although not a parasitic disease, it illustrates the role of animals in transmitting infectious agents. Because rats were involved, in fact, they were the vectors of the disease. So, it's a zoonotic disease. So that's why it is brought here. Then you have European exploration and malaria. Malaria caused by Plasmodium parasite and transmitted by Anopheles mosquitoes played a significant role in the history of exfoliation, sorry, exploration and colonization, especially of the African countries, right? European explorers and settlers often suffer from malaria in the new tropical environments, and which actually I was reading about it sometime. It killed a lot of them. It's just that they were so determined. It's the kind of determination that an Oyibo man has. That they were able to scale through that one and even come back for more. Now, if you say we are looking for major outbreak of zoonotic diseases, we cannot forget Chagas disease outbreak in Brazil, 1909. Chagas disease caused by Trypanosoma cruzi is transmitted by kissing bugs. An outbreak occurred in the state of Minas, that's in Brazil, in 1909, with a large number of people infected. This outbreak helped to raise the awareness of the disease and its transmission, but actually it's caused a lot of losses. Then African sleeping sickness epidemic. The African sleeping sickness caused by Trypanosoma brucei and transmitted by tsetse flies has caused numerous epidemics in Africa over the years. The disease has had a significant impact on the European colonial efforts in Africa during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And then you have outbreak of waterborne outbreak of amoebiasis caused by the parasite Hemiplegica, which has been associated with several waterborne outbreaks. One notable outbreak occurred in Chicago in 1933 due to contaminated water supplies. And during that time, there were so many casualties also. Then you have cysticercosis outbreak in the United States. Uh, this cysticercosis caused by the larval stage of the tapeworm Taenia solium has been a concern in the United States, particularly in areas with immigrant population from regions where the tapeworm is endemic. Several outbreaks related to food contamination have been reported. Now, this one is concerned those that are actually eating pork because it's a worm that is more prevalent in the pigs. Then we mentioned this, right? I think I'm just repeating it. Schistosomiasis has remained a persistent problem in Egypt, particularly in the Nile Delta. Effort to control diseases, including water management and snail control, have been ongoing for decades. We keep exploring, but still, even though recently I heard about its vaccine and how the trial is going on. So hopefully with time we'll be able to overcome the disease. But it's actually causing a lot of havoc. In Kano State, all the 44 local government areas in Kano, they are endemic with schistosomiasis. So it's quite unfortunate, and it's a disease that actually does not manifest fast. So you can harbor it for a long time while it is causing havoc in the body without actually knowing it. So Allah is a Now another major outbreak is the outbreak of toxoplasmosis caused by the parasite Toxoplasma gondii, has been associated with foodborne outbreak, particularly linked to the consumption of undercooked or contaminated meat, as well as environmental contamination. Some notable outbreaks have occurred, raising awareness of this zoonotic parasite. Now, as you can see, I have mentioned Lassa fever outbreak, COVID-19 outbreak. There are also major pandemic or major zoonotic diseases that we really will never forget. So I left them blank for you, student, to go and write about the outbreak of these diseases as your assignment. That's Lassa fever as well as COVID-19, and that will be your CA. I hope you understand. So this historical example illustrates the long-lasting presence of parasitic zoonosis in human populations and the impact they had on the societies and the public health. While progress has been made in understanding and controlling these diseases, many challenges remain, especially in regions where zoonotic parasites are endemic. Public health measures, education, research continue to be essential in managing and preventing outbreaks of parasitic zoonosis. Now, what are the common parasitic zoonotic agents? Zoonotic agents, including parasites, are organisms that are transmitted from animal to humans, or from humans to animals, causing a range of diseases. Here are some common parasitic zoonotic agents. You have things like Toxoplasma gondii, which is transmission. Okay, now we look at the transmission of that Toxoplasma gondii. It is found in cat feces and contaminated soil, water, food, and can be transmitted through consumption of undercooked or raw infected meat. Manifestation of the disease: toxoplasmosis, which can cause flu-like symptoms in healthy individuals, can be severe in those with weakened immune system and can cause congenital infections in pregnant women. You now have things like also tinea solium, pork tapeworm, right? So it's for those that are actually consuming undercooked pork contaminated with the larval form of the tapeworm. Cysticercosis in humans, which can lead to cysts forming in various organs, including the brain. There was a clip I saw. The tinea solium, if it gets to the human, it's not its actual, it's like an accidental host. So what it does is that it keep wandering around, and somebody was just seeing the worm going around his eyes. In fact, he can see around the pupils. So lucky for him anyway. Had it been it had gone to the brain? It depends on which part of the brain it's affected. It could kill him. It will cause him permanent damages. Maybe it can touch where he will be paralyzed forever, not knowing that it's that pork that he has eaten. That's why we as Muslims, we thank God for Allah's for Allah that had already restricted us from eating pork. And then you have a kind of coccus species, especially hydatid tapeworm. Also in a transmission, is also transmitted by ingesting tapeworm eggs from contaminated food, water, or surfaces. Usually, dogs are the definitive host, but sometimes they can occur in human too, because human could be their accidental host. Hydatid cysts or echinococcosis, which can result in the formation of cysts in the organs such as the liver and the lungs. So it will cyst and it will become strong, and it will affect that part of the skin. And you don't know how big it can be, or it keep growing, or what have you. So it can affect the functioning of that organ it has affected. You also have Leishmania species, which is transmitted by sandflies. And then the disease manifestation, include you have the cutaneous type, the mucocutaneous, and you have the visceral. Those cutaneous and mucocutaneous, usually they affect the upper surfaces and a little bit deeper surface, but the visceral one actually goes deeper into the organs. Symptoms range from skin sores to life-threatening organs, especially when it involves organs. So it can be very disturbing. Sometimes it can be mistreated and look like it's cancer, not actually not actually not actually a parasitic disease. It can be misdiagnosed. That's one difficult part of the parasitic parasitic diseases. They can be easily misdiagnosed. So you now see you have Trypanosoma cruzi, you have schistosomiasis, you have Giardia lambia, you have Cryptosporidium species, you have Toxocara, you have Trichinella species. All these things, all these are parasites or that can be actual, that can really uh, be affected. Oh, sorry. What am I doing? These are all different kinds of common uh, zoonotic, common parasitic zoonotic agents. That is diseases that can actually be caused by the uh, parasitic zoonotic diseases. So I'll talk about now host specificity and reservoirs of zoonotic parasites. Host specificity and reservoirs play essential roles in understanding the dynamic and the zoonotic parasite. For instance, host specificity refers to the degree to which a parasite can infect and reproduce within a particular host species. Parasites can exhibit a range of host specificity, from highly specialized, that's only infecting only that parasite, so it's highly specialized for that parasite, for that host, to broad, infecting multiple species. Host specificity is determined by various factors, including the parasite's biology and the presence of suitable receptors or environmental conditions in the host. Now, specialized parasites, are parasites that are highly specific, meaning they rely on a single species to complete life cycle. For instance, in human, malaria parasite Plasmodium falciparum primarily infects human and has a limited host range. Now, a generalized parasite can infect multiple host species. For instance, Toxoplasma gondii can infect a wide range of warm-blooded animals, including humans, cats, and various mammals. Now, what is that reservoir? Reservoir host is a species that serves as a natural habitat and source of that infection for a particular parasite, allowing the parasite to persist in a population. Reservoir hosts are typically asymptomatic or less affected by the parasite compared to other hosts. This host can play a crucial role in transmission and maintenance of zoonotic diseases. Then you have what is known as amplifying hosts. Amplifying hosts could be like when you have some reservoir hosts are not they don't just harbor the parasite just like that, but the parasite but they support the parasite for its reproduction and I don't know, and its development. Let's put it that way, and its development. Let's say this mosquito, which is a vector to Plasmodium falciparum, is also an amplifying host to the Plasmodium because it allows it, apart from harboring it, it allows it to amplify or develop. And in fact, when there is no mosquito, the development of the Plasmodium cannot continue. It can cease without the mosquito. So that is an amplifying host. A dead end host. Occasionally, a species can become infected with a zoonotic parasite, but does not contribute significantly to the parasite life cycle. These hosts are often referred to as dead-end hosts because the parasite cannot complete its life cycle within them. So it's like it's just trapped inside. And in these cases, infection in the dead-end host does not contribute to ongoing transmission. Women can sometimes be dead-end hosts for certain zoonotic diseases. Like for instance, we talked about Tinea solium. What was that? Yes, was it Tinea solium? We just talked about this parasite, Toxoplasma, right? That is primarily not Toxocara canis. Also, it's primarily for cats, and if it gets into human, it can be a dead end parasite because it cannot continue its life cycle there, but it can continue causing havoc in that in that host. Understanding host specificity and reservoir is crucial or critical for controlling and preventing zoonotic diseases. It helps identify which species are more likely to carry and transmit the parasite, as well as which species might act as sources of infection for humans. So this is just trying to shed more light on why it is important for one to study the kind of parasite involved and the kind of host that is involved so that you can know how you can control diseases. If you know that it's cat that is actually spreading the disease for you, or rat, then you know that you take care of rat. And if you know that it's a vector, which is a fly or a mosquito that's actually spreading it to you, then you know how to take care of that and prevent the mosquito. So I would like to call it, I want to stop here because I got some visitors.